Hi, this is William Stewart, co-founder of Teleos. Welcome back to our verse-by-verse study on the book of Second Corinthians. We're in the amazing chapter 5. Paul, and starting in chapter 4, was talking about his ministry, his suffering on behalf of the Corinthians, and recognizing while he is still in the body, his physical body, he is there to serve. But then he starts in chapter 5 that he longs to be with Christ, but recognizes again that he is there to his service for as long as he's here. And though he longs to be of Christ, he recognizes that he, as well as others, will be judged by their works while they're on earth. So again, not to salvation, but just how did they use the time and the resources that were provided to them to serve God. So we start in verse 11 today. Knowing therefore, otherwise you see the word therefore, you should ask then, why is he saying this? It's based on what came before. So I think the fact that they're judged, we will be judged by God for what we've done, even as Christians. Otherwise, Christians who are saved by faith alone, okay, not by works, but our works, we will account for our works as believers. Knowing therefore the terror of the Lord. Otherwise, phobos is in the original Greek here, fear, like we get the word phobia. Now, most Christians I talk to like to make this into respect. We don't actually fear God. I disagree with this. He is the God of the universe, and he will save us. He keeps his promises, but he can punish us, Hebrews 12. And we're told a number of times that we actually have fear. Ephesians 5:21 is a good example. And we've said a couple of videos ago, how we will be judged. 1 Corinthians 3, 1 Corinthians 5, and as examples as well as here in 2 Corinthians 5. So this is God. He loves us as a father, but we need to behave, do what he says for our own good, and to keep away from any punishment. So therefore, we persuade men. We are made manifest unto God, otherwise he knows our attitudes, and then he hopes that their attitude will be manifest to the Corinthians as well, otherwise their purity and good conscience. Verse 12, for we commend not ourselves to you again, otherwise this was discussed earlier in the book about letters of commendation, of presentation, that Paul's saying we don't need this, you know who we are, we come from God, but we don't need to do that. But we give you an occasion to glory on our behalf. Otherwise, they should glory or joy, kalkomai is the original Greek, meaning pride or joy, on what we've done. They may have somewhat to answer them, which glory in appearance, but not in heart. Otherwise, when you run across those people of false doctrine who are trying to use the church for their own gain, you can tell them about Paul and God's given ministry to him for true salvation. Verse 13, for whether we be besides ourselves, it is to God, or whether we be sober, it is for your cause. So he recognizes that some people would probably say that he's crazy for everything he tolerates and what he does, perhaps what he says. But it's whether that or sober, the word here really, sophrones in the original Greek, is healthy thinking. Sort of the opposite of being crazy. Healthy thinking, it's for them. Otherwise, everything Paul does is for them. His life, as well as our lives, Romans 12:1, should be a service. Verse 14, for the love of Christ constrains us, otherwise has hold of us, from the original Greek, because we thus judge that if one died for all, then we're all dead. And he that died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves, but live unto them that died for them and rose again. So this really integrates nicely with Romans 6, spiritual baptism. Otherwise, we are identified with Christ's death and resurrection. He died. When we accept Christ by faith, we died with him. He rose to new life. We raised to new life. Wherefore, henceforth, know we no man after the flesh. Though we have known Christ after the flesh, yet now henceforth we know him no more. Otherwise, we don't think of men the way man thinks of men. So it talks about in 1 Corinthians 2, we who are spiritual compare things spiritual against spiritual. We think of men as God would think of them. And that's a hard thing to do, but this we need to do. We assess people after what Scripture says about men. We knew Christ after the flesh, but again, Christ has changed now. He has a heavenly body, as we know from John 20 and 21, and he rose again for the dead. So they fully understand and know what Christ is about as apostles and teach that to the Corinthians. And it's this, of course, he wants them to teach to other people. And we'll talk about next time. So Paul is basically saying here, we are constrained out of fear to do what Christ wants us to do with a pure and good message based on that hope of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. We live unto him and not ourselves. We live to serve you, Corinthians, and not ourselves. Okay, thank you for joining me today. We'll continue with this great passage next time. I hope you'll join me then.